Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TTV Modcast, episode 11.
That's 11 straight weeks of content. Woohoo!
Yay!
Haven't missed a week yet.
So, let's just introduce ourselves then. So, I'm Waj.
I'm Chronicler.
I'm Knockoff Eljay.
I'm Lego Master.
And I'm real Eljay, who's about to kick the snot out of knockoff Eljay.
We have
Does that mean
podcast
that-
member.
Whoa.
Does that mean that climbs Creo?
Oh, I don't know about Creo. He's like 2001 mega blocks.
Is it bad that I actually considered buying a Creo set once?
Yes.
Can you believe it? A real TTV member in the flesh and cardboard.
Speaking of flesh and cardboard, how about that Bionicle Generation 1?
What? What kind of a segue was that?
Yeah, our segues are brilliant. So,
Slime, if you ever got flesh in your Bionicle sets, then Lego has some serious quality control issues.
Nah, they're just trying to provide you with an actual biomechanical being.
So, we're gonna talk about Bionicle Generation 1, but since it's a really big topic, we're going to split the discussion across 3 Modcast episodes. And we're going to be discussing different years of Bionicle. So this episode will be about 2001 to 2003, and then the next episode will be 04 to 06, and the last one will be 07 to 09. And the episodes will have staggered releases, so it'll be this episode, and then we'll have 3 episodes in the middle, so it'll be episode 15, and then 3 episodes more, and then the last one on Bionicle G1 will be episode 19. So that's just how we're going to do this whole Bionicle G1 discussion. So to kick things off, I just wanted to ask, how were you guys introduced into Bionicle?
So basically, I am pretty much have this older brother. I'm going to refer to as Kylerak. And he originally got into Bionicle when he was, I think, like 5 years old or even older. And it was around 9 years old when he started like getting some of the 2003 sets. He was the one who kind of introduced me into it, so I kind of grew up with it as I like my first Bionicle set I got when I was like 5 years old or whatever. That was in 2004, and I built it all by myself. So I just kind of grew up with it. I followed it when I was really young. My brother was always there to tell me all the story updates because I wasn't that great of a reader at the time. It was just mostly me and him having the time of our lives and just enjoying ourselves.
I came into contact with Bionicle back when I was like 4.5. Basically, we were in Bangkok, and we went to this one huge supermarket, and I was really into Power Rangers at the time, and so I was looking for like Power Rangers toys, and I found some, and like right next to them were the original Taraga, and so my first set was Taraga Onawa, and just from then on, I started collecting all sorts of Bionicles through the years.
So, the way I was introduced into Bionicle was, I don't really remember the exact reason why, or how, like, obviously I was into Lego and all that when I was a small child, but I don't really remember how exactly I got into Bionicle, per se. I know that I received Kohatu Mata as my first set, and I don't really remember why I got it, but I did. My parents gave it to me, and were like, here, have this, and I was like, yay! Then I didn't know how to build it, so I had to have my dad build it for me, and then I proceeded to get all of the rest of the Mata, but not Kopaka. It grew from there, and I didn't really get into the story that much until late 05, early 06. I started books and starting to get more invested in storyline and all that. By 07, 08, I was getting, more into the serials, all that online stuff. Yeah.
For me, my Bionicle experience is really just a couple fragments. I don't have a fixed, first major experience beyond a few scattered events. First of all, I remember that I got 2 of the Rockshi when I was really, really young from my grandparents. And that was really the only Bionicle sets I had for a long time because my parents at that time didn't really want me to get into Bionicle as a Lego theme. I was into other Lego stuff like Star Wars and things, but they just weren't super into Bionicle for me. So I was like, okay. Eventually, I remember I had a babysitter who introduced me and my sister to Mask of Light. This would have been back in like 06. She, for some reason, always kept calling the Matoran kids. So kind of like as if they were the kids of the Toa or something funky like that. And I guess I had enough knowledge of Bionicle at that point to probably from, the magazines which I received and which I kind of absorbed, even though I really wasn't invested in the line itself. I was like, they're not kids, they're Matoran. Matoran and Toa are two separate things. And then the other main thing is that I think it was 2007, 2008. I don't know if any of you guys remember the BionicleStory.com.
Oh, of course.
I just found that website and I was like, this is really, really, really cool. And I was into Bionicle for a while, didn't really collect the sets, and I only really got into hardcore, like following the story and collecting the sets pretty much this year, the last 1 or 2 years.
So
I think we saved the best for last. Yeah.
Oh yeah, all right. So it's actually on the the TTV wiki, but it's well known. I grew up in a place called Palo Alto, California. It's well known, Silicon Valley. Google's there, Facebook's there. Steve Jobs lived there. I met him once. There was a local toy store. It's just a Palo Alto toy store. So one day we go in, me and my siblings, my parents were just walking around, I don't really remember what it was for, but we were just picking up some fun little toy things, and my siblings, they had gotten something. I was like, well, nothing here looks cool. So I'm just wandering around the store and going, nothing here looks interesting whatsoever. And finally I stumble across Galak Kal, and this was late 2002 and early 2003. I was like, now that looks cool. Picked it up, got it, went back home, and promptly lost several pieces and could not build it. So eventually I ended up going online, looking at all the story material, getting the books, more sets, Mask of Light came out, so on and so forth, and kind of just grew from there. So I just eventually got into the story more and more and more from that point on, looked forward to the movies, ended up getting in the community around late 2005, and actually joining in 2005, September 1st, 2005 is when I officially became a member of the community and made a post there about a year later. That's how I started out.
I always assumed that you were a filthy 01er.
No, no, I'm actually one of the few TTV members that did not get into Bionicle in 2001, so I know the most about it, and I love 2001 the most, but nope, I was late 02 to early 03.
Well, that makes it a completely different experience for you then, because you're not just looking at it because of nostalgia reasons. You're looking at it fairly well objectively.
Oh, very, definitely. And keep in mind, without revealing my actual age, I was younger, competent, but still younger, definitely. So I got to go on Bionicle.com during a lot of its infancy stage, when it was just expanding. And really, the first major update that I got to experience was the switch to 2004. And this is when just everything absolutely changed, followed it all the way through the year, got into 2005, and so on and so forth. But yeah, no, I look at 2001, I got all the sets eventually, obviously, and I definitely look at it as one of my favorite years based on its merits alone and not my involvement during that time.
So, about the sets that were released back in 2001, 2003, what were your favorite sets?
That's easy. Liwamata. Absolutely loved that set, but it was mainly derived because my favorite color is green. And I went online, I saw the online animations. It was just so cool watching him bounce around and fighting a new one and what have you. While he was, I didn't get him at first, obviously, but when I eventually got him, easily my favorite set from that entire time span. However, 2001-03 had a lot of really great sets as well. Exotoa, Barag, the Borak especially were phenomenal. 2003 didn't really have a whole lot of large sets. Like, it didn't have these great big intricately designed sets. It had some really cool ones like Takua and Puku. That was a very interesting, unique design because of how the legs moved. But definitely Tomata were some of my favorites. Liwamata sticking out.
For me, it would be Exotoa. That was just such a cool set. I found the fact that it had like a missile launcher was just really cool. And I remember the Borak being just really cool as well. I remember like making a bowling alley, and I remember rolling like Parak.
I'm not gonna lie, my friend and I, back in like 2007, 2008, I want to say, we may or may not have played Borak baseball.
Oh, no way.
Oh, no.
Oh. Surprisingly, nothing really broke.
What?
I mean, I think some pieces like fell off or something, but nothing like actually snapped, surprisingly.
Wow.
Yeah, as far as like my favorite set goes, what I've discovered somewhat recently is that I really like sets that have like I don't know what the term for it would be, just the best way I can describe it is punching function, especially with rubber bands. So like, not just punching necessarily, but also like just lunging forward. So like, I just recently got the
Terracotta.
yeah, I got one of the Tarkava for my birthday this year, actually. And stuff like that, Skull Scorpio, the Bow all those sorts of lunging forward set types. I really like that for some reason. But
Do you have
as far as
Muak
like
and
out of
Kyra?
all those from 2001 through 2003, the Bow really were designed in a very good way. Like, some of the things about them are a little awkward, but the whole idea that they can roll up into balls and they have the head launching forward function, and they have the chrono launching function. It's really, they're really good sets, and I think I'm gonna have to choose that. And of course, Bow extends to, you know, all the Bow and the Bow Call, because they're exactly the same.
I mean, the Borak Call were just DLC. Downloadable Borak skin packs.
But they did have a lot of really nice recolors, I find.
They did. They absolutely did. And I mean, the new shell pieces too, so that's cool.
That's the thing for me, like, looking back on it, a lot of the 2001 to 2003 sets, I like certain aspects of them. I like certain colors of pieces that were released back then. Like, say, a lot of the original Matoran sets, I really, really like their overall colors. And I'm actually currently working on revamping some of those original ones, and just certain aspects of the 01 to 03 sets, as much as they have lots of faults, and as much as their articulation is really limited, some parts of them are just really, really cool. But my favorite sets would probably be like either Kopakanuva or Takanuva. I really, really love Takanuva's, is it warm gold? Oh, no.
No, it's the dark gold.
Yeah, dark gold. I know some people hate on that, but I really, really love that color.
So I don't really get the chance to spout opinions, you know, objective, community opinions, so on and so forth. The McTaurin, you know, the little Tohunga that you get with the McDonald's Happy Meals, while I love them, I think they're phenomenal. They're fun little trinkets and they look really cool. They're the absolute worst Bionicle sets that were ever released, and they're the most useless Bionicle sets.
In terms of parts?
Yeah, in terms of parts.
Oh,
They
yeah.
have... This is why it's unpopular. They have one function.
Oh, that makes me like insult my first Bionicle ever.
Again, that's why I prefaced it. I like them. I think they're really cool. I think they look really neat. Part compatibility wise, they're entirely useless. Aside from the mask, they are possibly worse sets than the Avmatoran.
It is kind of comparable to Avmatoran, now that you say that, but I mean,
But at least the Avmatoran
there's
have
also the
usable
torso
pieces.
piece. The torso piece is a fairly usable piece of technique.
Yes,
I
my
use
brother
that
Kyle's-
on at least one mock that I've made as part of a chest piece.
Possible, but you do have a lot more versatility with the Avtorn parts. This is getting too far ahead, but I just want to say that, like, the McTaurin are a lot of fun. However, they're not exactly good. They've got a lot of flaws.
Yeah. Like posability is what is
It's horrendous. You just don't have any.
You can't pose the neck. You can't pose the arms. You can't pose anything other than move the feet.
I feel like a big problem with a lot of the earlier sets, though, is just their lack of neck articulation. I feel like that really detracts from the personality that those figures could have had.
That's a very good assessment, because a lot of that personality comes with head movement, and it was downright revolutionary when the Metru came out right after the 2003 Takanuva and what have you. I mean, heck, the Rakshi, they had head articulation.
I was just about to say, what was the first set that had actual head articulation?
The Borak Vault, I remember those things as when I was a little kid. I was so amazed by how they had neck articulation. It was the coolest thing ever at the time.
They
Some
can
of
only
them
move
did,
their heads
some
kind
of
of like
them
side to side, right?
Some of them could go up and down.
Weren't they on ball joints though?
Yeah, a few of them, Tanakva, Korakva, Galakva. I don't think Levak.
Could
Va.
I know because I had that set.
You built it wrong, I bet.
That's how they're all connected. Is through the handpiece, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is something I actually only realized during the process of actively reviewing the Borak Va, is because I had Levak Va for years. Levak Va and Galak Va, and then I ended up getting the others later through Bricklink. Levak Va is unique in that his faceplate connects via the ball joint. This is per the instructions, by the way. It connects via the ball joint, and the axle hole goes on the axle on the neck. So his head is actually immobile. However, the faceplate moves. Now that is per the instruction.
I see that now. I'm looking at pictures of them. Oh wow! Why would they do that?
I know, right? So
what?
the thing is,
Right.
and I feel like this is perfectly acceptable, because in almost all promotional material, it's the other way around. It's just the Vakva's faceplate is on through the axle hole, and then you connect the head via the ball joint, and it can move around. It was bizarre. I didn't know why they did that, but I feel that it's acceptable. You can do it either way, because, the instructions aren't always necessarily law. But, for instance, on the packaging, it's normal. It doesn't do how the instructions show, which is why I feel it's fine. You can probably go either which way. But yeah, some of them were able to do the whole head articulation. But yeah, you guys are right. It was the Borak Va that were first.
So, Bionicle G1 had a lot of different media outlets. They were the sets, but there were also the books, the comics, the Matnui online games, and the movie that came out. So, what was your favorite form of G1 media?
I would say that the Matnui online game 2 is obviously the best. No question about it. Best game, 10 out of 10. I totally want to play it with Meso as well, just because.
Tell that to Kahi.
Hey guys, I'm Kahi. I'm actually in this club too.
10 out of 10 impersonation. Seriously, he likes the Matnui online game 2 more than Matnui online game 1.
Can I share my unpopular opinion for the episode?
Do it.
I don't like Monog.
That's it! Kick off the heathen! He's not allowed!
Yeah, like a master, I've got some unfortunate news. Unfortunately, we now have a moderator position open. Bye.
Nice.
I'm actually interested to hear this. Why don't you like Monog?
I guess I'm not 100% qualified to make this statement because I haven't finished the entire game. I played like an hour of it a couple weeks ago for the first time ever. I think I got to Powahi, where you meet Akmu selling, the infected Koli balls.
Yep.
And it's just, the game doesn't feel interesting to me. Maybe it's because the first part of it has been covered so many times in so many different, like you guys have covered it on TTV, and I've seen it in all sorts of other places, that it just feels very monotonous to me. And maybe if I had gotten past a certain point, it would have been more interesting, but it isn't. I feel like it's confusing to go from place to place. You get turned around a lot, especially in the caverns and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know, it didn't really give me that same sense of exploration, that same sense of like, oh, I want to explore the Matanui world as everyone else seemingly had. It was just like, okay, this world seems kind of bland and confusing to me.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Now I can understand, because if you see something enough, like if you hear enough about a movie and then you watch that movie, it's not going to seem interesting because you already know a lot about that movie. It's not going to be a surprise. It's not going to be new, or it's not going to be unique to you. So that makes sense.
I will say that, as I mentioned earlier, I love the 2001 to 2002, 2003 character animations. So those individual, were they TV spots, or were they just like things for Bionicle.com? Like, the ones where it was like 20-second clips.
I remember seeing Metru ones for sure.
It's really the only main CGI material we have for those years.
Do you guys remember having mini CDs packaged in with Bionicle sets? Because they had all the videos you're describing, and they had like a 3D model of whatever Toa you had purchased, and you could you could examine it. There was like a button, and then there was this narrator guy that was like, let's take a closer look at the Bionicle. I just remember that being really cool.
Those are awesome. Those are fantastic.
I never actually received any of those in person. I saw them at a friend's house once, and I was like, what is that? It's amazing. But I never got one myself.
Yeah, the media was fantastic for between those 3 years. There was a lot of world building and character exploration, especially in the books.
I really have a fondness for the books, because as much as I find Monog enjoyable, and Monog 2 as well, I completed neither of those games. I started them because, they were still up on the site for a while. So I'd played those much after the fact of 2001.
Wait. So I would hear you say, Slime, that you never actually finished them?
I haven't finished Monog 2.
That's actually perfectly fair. Monog 2 is an incredibly tedious game. It takes ages to finish.
To be completely honest, I don't think I ever got past Gokoro.
I don't blame you. It's so tedious. It's incredibly daunting, and it takes ages. And that's even assuming the game runs fine and there aren't any glitches.
Yeah. For Monog, what I did as N small child was, you know how you could like pull up the menu screen, you could like skip around to different cutscenes or whatever, or locations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that.
You sicken me.
So I just skipped all of like the actual exploring and like
Disgusting.
puzzle solving part of the game and just went through to every single thing. I was like, oh, here it is. Look at that. But I think my favorite parts of that specifically were like the mysterious aspects of everything. There was like the red star and like what did that mean? And like the bow rock with like the bubble thing. The place in Pokoro with all the carvings of the Toa with like the different slots in the mouths. What did that mean? Like everything was so mysterious, and that to me was such a good atmosphere that I haven't really seen captured. Maybe it was just because I was younger. Maybe things were less predictable back then for me. That's probably the case, but to me, that is the most enjoyable part of Monog. Not even necessarily the world building or anything like that. Just the mystery to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. There was a lot of mystique.
But it's something you had to have been there for, right? Like, you had to really have been there in those years to kind of appreciate that.
I don't know if I'd say that, because, like I said, I played these games in, like, 2005, 2006. Like, a solid 5 years after Monog came out. Granted, it's not like I was... I mean, yeah, if you've already had those events spoiled for you, then obviously it's going to be less of a, like, oh, wow, it's so mysterious. Like, if you know that the Red Star is Zombie Maker, it's like, oh, it's the Red Star, it's the Zombie Maker. You look at the statues and the Pokoro, and you're like, oh, only literally one of those matters. If you go into something like that blind, it's a truly enjoyable experience, in my own opinion. Not to tie it necessarily back to G1, G2, but that is Umarak!
The Hunter!
It's just not the same.
So, G1, how do you guys think it compares to what we're getting currently with the 2015 and 2016 sets and general media?
Objectively speaking, the Generation 2 sets are better, if only for articulation purposes.
Oh, definitely.
Because you can say, okay, well, the G1 Toa have swinging functions.
They have flopping functions.
Your mileage may vary, but at least it's the similar function, plus with the added bonus of articulation, as well as having a new function, which is the mask popping, which still functions for the same reason that the original mask did, which was to, you know, try to knock off your opponent's mask. Generation 2 sets were, objectively speaking, better.
But in terms of, like, the story and the atmosphere, that's one thing that's a very big point of contention, right?
Yeah.
The biggest differences between G1 and G2 is that, while G1 often left to a lot of interpretations in its first couple of years, gave a lot of different story hints and all this other stuff, it was entirely mysterious. G2's storyline is more straight to the point and overall more focused on how the characters interact with each other. The fact that G2's really going on that whole island thing where they have all these engravings and everything, it's really cool.
One thing I think that G2 did a lot better than G1 did is basically it got rid of the absolutely, like, monotonous, and this was really a problem in 01 to 03, the really monotonous MacGuffin search.
Whoa.
Basically, the Toa searching for masks after masks after masks after masks that didn't really make any sense. Like, LJ, how many masks did all the Toa search for between Nuva masks and Mata masks in total?
Well, let's think about this. Toa Mata had to get 5 masks each, and then as Toa Nuva, they had to get an additional 5 masks.
Is that counting the
120
noble
masks.
Praga masks?
You're right, that's not actually. So they had to get about 11 masks each as Mata, and then an additional 5 masks each as Nuva. And that's 6 Toa. It's a lot of masks.
And they didn't really amount to anything. Like, for me, one of my biggest problems with, was it Kathy Hapka? I read the first couple Bionicle books a couple summers ago, and they just felt really devoid of life, honestly. It was just like the Toa who weren't really characters. They weren't really fleshed out as characters. Just going from place to place, getting mask to mask. They didn't really have any significance in the story. Because masks are supposed to be this, like, mystical, powerful thing. And there were just so many of them. It's like oversaturation, you know?
That's understandable. As much as I hold the Kathy Hapka books near and dear to my heart for being the first books of Bionicle that I ever read, I would say probably objectively speaking, they're one of the worst as far as writing goes out of Bionicle media.
So here's the thing with the Hapka books. The difference between them and Greg Farshte's is that she focuses a lot more on the action, the outside experience of things that are going on. I believe, instead of the inner monologue of the characters, you don't really get to get inside of their heads. Greg Farschte, on the other hand, he really looks inside the characters. He sees what they're thinking, their thought process, and then the subsequent action. So that's why those seem a little bit different. Regarding G1 versus G2, or at least the first 3 years, it'd be a lot easier if we actually had a third year of G2.
Yep.
But it's actually interesting because we do have a lot of material from Generation 2. We have the books. We do kind of sort of have games-ish, not really. We have the sets, we have online, we have the online animations, and we have Journey to 1. There's a lot of actual content there. With the first 2 years of Gen 1, can you guys tell me the exact release dates of the first 2 books?
2003?
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah, something
they
around
were
there.
released in 2003. We didn't have books in 01 and 02. They just weren't a thing. So our only story outlets were the comparable online animations and Monog. And in 2003, we got the movie, the books, and Monog 2. So in 2003, we really had a lot of story content. But in the first 2 years, we only had the sets, we had online, we did have the online animations, and then we had Monog 1, but no books and no movie, and no online series. So in a lot of ways, they do actually kind of balance each other out. And with Gen 2, it's a lot more forward, easily discernible and easily digestible material. With Gen 1, there was a lot of mystery to it. However, it was also a lot of point A to point B. So they are very similar, especially since G2 is trying to copy a lot of what Gen 1 did in order to replicate that success. Set-wise, though, Gen 2 sets are easily superior.
We're always, I think, going to fall into that trap of comparing all of G1 to just what we have of G2 so far. That's been a major problem in the fandom.
Yeah.
And I think just by the inherent nature of, even if Bionicle gets another year, that's still 3 to 4 years to 10 years. There's always going to be that gap, right? We're never going to have equal amounts of content, even though we have 2 parallel universes that we always are going to want to compare. So really, are we ever going to make a fair comparison?
I think a fair comparison can be made. You don't necessarily need to have a fair amount of material, a fair amount of length of time. That's what would make it a fair comparison. Gen 2 is trying very hard to replicate the success of its predecessor, and to a degree, it's actually done a good job of that. The sets have similar functions. They brought back gear functions and made it flow seamlessly with posability and articulation. They're making steps to try and rekindle that just massive success. So I think a fair comparison can be made. It's just whether or not they have a fair amount of content to where one or the other is going to be better. I think in some ways, Gen 2 does a lot of things better, and set-wise, especially. And while a lot of the sets were really intricate, really big, very enjoyable to build in Gen 1, they also had a lot of flaws. Their articulation, a lot of gaps, and whether or not you like Greebles or not, it's your preference. So I think a fair comparison can be made. It's just whether or not one is better than the other, and I don't think there's a clear-cut answer.
Regarding the Kathy Hapka versus Greg Farschte debate, Eljay, you said that you thought that Greg Farschte got into the characters of Bionicle more, so could you say that he's cutting into Bionicles piece by piece? And
No.
with that, we end the episode.
He's cutting into Bionicle! Bionicle piece by piece! Not Bionicle slime, you illiterate fudge!
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thanks, Eljay, for guest starring.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It was fun.
Glad you had fun. So, bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.